Where are you watching from today? This one's personal. If I'd known that one mug of coffee would set fire to 6 decades of self-respect, I wouldn't have left my room. I was sitting at the kitchen table that morning. Quiet. Still. The sun poured in through the big windows. Claire's kitchen always looked like it belonged in a magazine spread. The coffee was strong. Too bitter. She brewed it the way her husband liked it, even though he wasn't around anymore. I held the mug anyway, just for warmth. I thought it'd be a normal day. I thought I was safe. Dylan, my grandson, barely looked up from his phone when he said it. "Grams, can I use your credit card again? I need this thing for my gaming setup. It's only $5,000. Just like he was asking for the salt. No shame. No pause. I didn't blink. Didn't even look at him. "No," I said. "That's all." And that's when Claire cracked. She didn't shout. Not at first. Instead, she let the silence expand like smoke in a locked room. Thick. Suffocating. Then she moved. Not toward me. Not violently. Worse than that. She reached out and tipped the cup right into my lap. The burn was instant. I gasped. The mug hit the tile and shattered into loud, jagged pieces. Hot liquid soaked straight through my pajamas. My legs stung. My hands trembled. My pride, gone. Claire didn't even flinch. "If you're going to be selfish," she said flatly, folding her arms like she was issuing company policy, "then maybe it's time you moved out. Either give Dylan what he needs, or find somewhere else. We're not running a charity here, Mom." Charity. She really said that. That word hit harder than the scalding. I stood there, dripping, steaming, humiliated. I stared at her, hoping to find even a flicker of regret. Nothing. Just calculation. She wasn't angry. She was auditing me. 5,000? I whispered, my voice shaky. For a video game setup? Claire scoffed. "It's not like it's a big deal. You've had money sitting there since Dad passed. Why are you acting like it's sacred?" I kept my tone low. "I've covered the utilities in this house every month. I've never asked you to pay for my medication." She rolled her eyes. "You're lucky I let you stay here after your surgery. You couldn't even walk. I've basically been managing your life. And this is the thanks I get?" I wanted to scream. Not because of the pain on my skin. But because the betrayal burned deeper. It was never support. It was strategy. Her help came with ropes. Invisible at first. Then tight. Then cutting deep. And just like that, I saw it clearly. She didn't see me as her mother anymore. She saw me as leverage. A bank account with a pulse. Dylan sat at the counter, still scrolling. Waiting. Like I was taking too long to cave. I reached for a napkin and tried to pat my legs dry. My fingers shook. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Neither of them moved to help. Claire folded her arms tighter. "You either give us the card, or be gone by tonight." There it was. Not a plea. Not a compromise. A deadline. I looked down at the coffee puddled around the broken mug. One of the fragments rested near my foot, a curved piece of ceramic with tiny flowers painted on it. From a set I brought with me when I moved in. One of the last things that was still mine. Just like me, cracked. Fading. Not needed. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I stood up slowly. Walked to the sink. Ran cold water over my blistered hands. Turned off the tap. Then I said it. "I'll be out before the sun sets." Claire blinked. She looked surprised. Maybe she expected me to beg. But she didn't know. What I finally remembered. Silence isn't surrender. And not all debts are paid with money. Some are paid with finality. I didn't slam the door. Just turned the knob and let it click shut behind me. No drama. No sound. Only stillness. The guest room, my room, felt smaller than usual. The kind of small that comes when you're no longer wanted, but still here. My thighs were still sore from the coffee, but that wasn't what burned. It was the truth. She meant it. Claire didn't want me here. Not because she couldn't help me, but because I no longer served a purpose. I was used up. In the way. I sat on the bed. The same one I'd healed in. The one she tucked me into after the hip surgery, night after night, whispering, "Don't worry, you're still my mom." Now I realized it was never compassion. It was control wrapped in routine. She called it a temporary arrangement. She said I'd stay, just while I got better. But it wasn't care, it was a slow disassembly of my independence. She handled my prescriptions. My groceries. The bills. All 4 E's. She said she'd manage my banking so I could rest. Told the neighbors I was too tired to come out and say hello, even when I was sitting by the window, waiting. She didn't tell me when they came by. And I let her. I let her take over my life one helpful gesture at a time. And by the time I realized what she'd done, it was already gone. I moved to the closet. Slow. Careful. My hip ached, but I didn't groan. The suitcase was right where I left it, up top. Covered in dust, but still whole. I reached for it, gripping the dresser for balance. Pain, I could manage. But what hurt worse was the silence. No one knocked. No one checked. Claire had thrown her tantrum loud enough to rattle the windows, and Dylan had sat there and watched me burn. Neither of them followed. I opened the top drawer. There, beneath the old linens, was the envelope I'd tucked away months ago. Birth certificate. Insurance papers. Printout of the bank's routing number. Back then, I didn't know why I'd hidden it. Now I did. Some part of me knew this moment was coming. Knew that I'd have to walk out, not broken, but wide awake. I packed in silence. No tears. No muttering. Just quiet, methodical folding. One blouse at a time. Rolled my tiny pouch of jewelry. Nothing fancy. Mostly costume. One pearl ring from my husband, before he passed. But it was mine. And that mattered. Outside the door, I heard the television humming again. Claire was back to her shows, the ones she always said I wouldn't get. I used to sit beside her, nodding, smiling. Now I realized I was never part of her life. Just background. Dylan was probably in his room, headphones on, running up someone else's card. Mine, maybe. I zipped the suitcase and sat down again. Not to rest, just to absorb it. The graduation photo was still on the dresser. Me and Claire. She made me stand in the center. Said I looked proud. I did. But I wasn't proud anymore. I was done pretending. The doorknob turned halfway. Then stopped. Someone heard the packing. They didn't come in. Didn't offer help. Or apology. Maybe they were hoping I'd vanish without making noise. They didn't know me at all. I sat still. Heart pounding like the night I went into surgery. But this wasn't fear. This was clarity. I wasn't damaged. I was discarded. And that meant I was finally free. I grabbed my phone. Scrolled through the names. Stopped on one I hadn't touched in months. Walter Morgan. Retired attorney. Once my neighbor. Still a good man. I hit call. 2 rings in, he picked up. Hey, it's you. Is everything okay? Not really, I said. But it's going to be. After I hung up, the silence came back. But this time, it was different. Not heavy. Just hollow. That kind of silence that only shows up in houses where love used to live. I placed my hand on the suitcase. Fingers grazed the nightstand, the one that used to hold my reading glasses. I hadn't read a single page in weeks. Because here, I wasn't a person. I was an item. A task. An expense. Then I noticed it. My purse. Sitting oddly light. I reached for it. Unzipped the front pocket. No wallet. No card. No ID. My heart jerked. I tore through the other compartments. Fast. Desperate. Nothing. Dumped the contents on the bed, mints, tissues, old receipts. Gone. I had it yesterday. I know I did. I used it to pay for my ointment at the pharmacy. Claire drove me. She offered to carry my bag while I walked slower than usual. I thought that was kindness. It wasn't. It was set up. I could hear her voice in my head now, that fake sweet tone she always used when planning something. Let me take care of your bills, Mom. I'll set up autopay. You don't have to lift a finger. Just focus on getting better, okay? I said yes. I handed over everything. Passwords. Accounts. Access. I thought I was saying yes to help. But I was handing over control. I don't remember the last time I saw a paper bank statement. She made everything go paperless. Again, for convenience. But not mine. What a fool I'd been. That thought rose in my throat like something bitter and hard, almost choking. It wasn't just regret. It was disgust. They didn't love me. They loved my resources. I wasn't family. I was a line on a spreadsheet. I moved toward the dresser, slower than usual, opened the second drawer. Tucked beneath some old socks was my tiny spiral notebook, the kind I used for grocery lists when I still lived in my own place. On the last page were numbers I'd jotted down months ago. Bank accounts. All mine. Still familiar. But when had I last seen the debit card that matched them? I checked every possible spot. Jewelry box. Empty. Under the mattress? Nothing. Even inside my old, worn Bible. Gone. They didn't ask for access. They didn't request permission. They took it. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. My body felt lightheaded, but my insides were heavy. The sting from the spilled coffee had faded, but this? This burned deeper. It wasn't pain. It was shame. Cold. Metallic. Like blood in the back of my mouth. And the worst part? I let it happen. I called it love. I told myself Claire was stepping up. That she was being generous. Selfless. But no. She wasn't stepping up, she was stepping in. And then around me. Then right over me. Every kind offer had a quiet price tag. Every helpful action came with strings, the kind you don't see until they've wrapped tight enough to bruise. I hadn't seen it clearly before. Not when she told the bridge club I wasn't feeling up to playing. Not when my bank stopped calling me and I didn't ask why. Not even when she started approving my online orders before I even placed them. Like I was 5. Like I was fading. She didn't trap me in a room. She just kept quietly shrinking the walls until I forgot they were there. That was the part that almost broke me. I've made it through things most people never could. 30 years working night shifts in the ER. Losing my husband to cancer. A shattered hip that still clicks when it rains. But I didn't make it through this with grace. I survived. But not with my dignity intact. I looked at the old photo again. Claire's graduation. She was beaming, full of pride. So was I. Or I thought I was. Now I see that smile differently. It wasn't pride. It was possession. Even back then, she wasn't reaching for my hand. She was standing in my shadow, already deciding how to use it. The phone buzzed beside me. Walter. Just a simple message. I'm outside. Ready when you are. I stared at the screen. Then at the invisible mess, the shattered trust and little betrayal scattered across this room like broken glass you only see in sunlight. I wasn't just leaving a house. I was leaving a lie. The lie that I still mattered to her. When I opened the door, Walter was already halfway up the walkway. Same calm energy he always carried, like nothing in the world could make him flinch. He wore his usual windbreaker and carried a canvas tote like we were heading to a weekend fair, not fleeing a quiet disaster. He didn't look shocked. Didn't scan me for damage. Just met my eyes and asked, "You ready?" I nodded once. The house behind me didn't make a sound. No doors opening. No voices calling out. That silence? That was my proof. Proof they assumed I'd stay. That I couldn't leave. Walter grabbed my suitcase without asking and gently took the small tote from my shoulder. "You got everything?" he asked, loading it into the trunk. "Everything that's still mine," I said. He opened the car door and helped me in. "Mind your hip." That line, so simple, nearly brought tears to my eyes. Not because it was sweet, but because it had been so long since anyone cared without a condition attached. The ride started quiet. I watched through the window as we pulled away. Every turn, every familiar sidewalk we passed. I felt lighter. And heavier. All at once. That house stopped being a home the day Claire started running the numbers on me like I was a cable bill. Halfway across town, Walter finally broke the silence. "You know," he said gently, "I saw you crying last week." I blinked. "When?" "You were out on the balcony. Holding that little ceramic bird. You looked far away." I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't even remember holding a bird. I didn't remember crying. But I must have. It felt like I was living someone else's life, I said quietly. A smaller one. One I didn't choose. He nodded slowly, keeping his eyes on the road. "I knew something was wrong when you stopped going to the library. You were always the first one there. Arguing with that old librarian about historical inaccuracies." That was the moment it hit me. Claire didn't just take my name off my bank account. She took my life. My routine. My little world, the one made of Thursday walks and bad coffee and church friends who laughed too loudly. She didn't throw me in a cage. She just made the world outside too distant to reach. "You're not the first I've helped like this," Walter said quietly. "More people are managed out of their independence than anyone wants to admit." I didn't speak. I couldn't. My voice stayed hidden behind a dam of uncried tears. Like passengers who missed their stop, circling. "I made a few calls," he continued. "There's a place I think you'll like. Private unit. Fully independent. You mentioned once you liked the koi pond?" I turned to him, blinking back something heavy. "That place is expensive." I remember the brochure. Claire said it wasn't an option. He smiled, but it wasn't kind. It was sharp. "Claire also said you needed help buying socks." He didn't need to say more. That single line cut right through the lie I'd been swallowing for years. "Don't hand her power she never earned," he added. I actually laughed, soft, but real. He pulled out a manila folder from the center console. "Here. Some info. Brochures. And we'll meet with a financial protection officer too. If your card really is missing, we shouldn't wait." Something in my chest knocked hard, not fear. Not even anger. Just the sound of truth hitting the floor. "I never wanted to end up here," I whispered. "She was my daughter." Walter didn't rush to fill the silence. He just nodded slowly, eyes steady on the road. And I'm sure you loved her well, he said. But sometimes, love is just the ribbon around poison. Somewhere back there, Claire might have finally noticed the room was empty. Maybe she cared. Maybe she didn't. But ahead of me, through the car window, I saw something different. Not a trap. Not another dead end. A door. And this time, it was open. What's one door you've been too afraid to walk through? Tell me. Maybe today's the day you finally grab the handle. We reached the front gate just past 11. Golden Pines, that was the name carved into the old wooden sign. There was nothing golden about it, no pines in sight, just simple black lettering on a board softened by weather and time. But what waited beyond it? It was something out of a life I never thought I'd have permission to want. Hydrangeas bloomed in slow motion under soft sunlight. A winding path led to a shaded bench beneath a wide willow. And just beyond that, a koi pond shimmered like a mirror that had nothing to reflect but peace. Walter turned off the ignition, but neither of us moved. I stared ahead, my fingers clenched lightly in my lap. I'm not ready, I murmured. Ready for what? He asked, gently. To want this. He didn't answer with a lecture. Didn't fill the silence with cliché comfort. He just nodded. That's the thing I admired about Walter, he gave silence room to stretch. He understood that some moments deserved breath, not band-aids. The lobby smelled of lemon balm and freshly baked rolls. Not bleach. Not hospital-grade disinfectant. Not sadness. It smelled like living. We were greeted by a woman named Leia, warm but not overly sweet. The kind of kindness that didn't make you feel smaller. You must be Ruth, she said. Walter called ahead. We've been expecting you. Welcome. Something about that word, welcome, felt foreign. Heavy. I almost corrected her. I wasn't staying. This was just a visit. Just a tour. But I didn't say anything. Because something inside whispered. Let it be. We toured the grounds slowly, Walter matching my pace without a word about it. A small library. A crafting room. A light-filled space where two older women rolled up yoga mats while laughing about how terrible they were at it. No one was monitoring them. No one asking for approval. They weren't being managed. They were choosing. Every hallway was lit by sun, not fluorescence. Every window cracked open like the building itself was breathing. We reached the koi pond, and I paused. Fish glided under the surface, quiet and soft, like they didn't know the meaning of urgency. I used to sit near water like this, I said. Whenever life got too loud. Before everything. Walter didn't try to fix the moment. You still do, he replied. And we just sat. No explanations. No labels. Just being. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't Claire's burden. I wasn't Dylan's open wallet. I wasn't a logistical problem or a line in a planner. I was just Ruth. Inside, Leia brought us to a tea room. A tray was already waiting, 2 cups, lemon cookies, and a single brochure. No pitch. No pressure. Just possibility. I held the warm mug in both hands and stared at the brochure like it might bite me. A private studio. Kitchenette. Balcony. Month-to-month lease. Move-in ready. The kind of thing Claire once dismissed with a casual snort. Those are for rich retirees, Mom. Not people like us. Don't waste time dreaming. But now, here it was. The price wasn't cheap. But it wasn't unreachable either, not if I had what Claire quietly stole from me. My access. My voice. My power. I don't even know if I can afford this, I said under my breath. Walter took a sip of tea and nodded slowly. Then let's find out. But first, file the protection order. I'll help. That word, protection, landed differently. Not because I was weak. But because I was done pretending that being used didn't hurt. Back at Walter's kitchen table, the real work began. We spread out everything I had left: yellowed insurance slips, crumpled statements, the tattered Medicare folder Claire once mocked for being too analog. And tucked inside it all, a notepad with corner curls and faint smudges, marked with moments I'd started tracking when something first began to feel off. "I know it's messy," I said. Walter adjusted his glasses. "Messy is fine. Truth usually is." He flipped through my notes. Recurring charges from boutique websites I'd never visited. A Netflix profile named Dill the King. PayPal withdrawals at 3 a.m. "This is strong," Walter said. "You've got more than you think." I sat a little straighter. For the first time, I wasn't spiraling. I was strategizing. The card may have vanished. But my memory hadn't. It was finally becoming clear. Claire hadn't helped me out of love. She helped herself, using me as the wrapper. "Do you have access to a printer?" Walter asked. "In Cliff's old study. Still connected to the dusty Dell." "Perfect. Tomorrow we scan it all," he said. "Then I'll connect you with someone who specializes in elder financial abuse. They won't just help with recovery, they help protect what's left." Then he paused, his tone changed. "But we need to move quickly. If Claire suspects you're not coming back, she might move to lock you out of more." I nodded grimly. "Some of the accounts are still under her name." Then he asked quietly, "What about the house?" My breath hitched. "It's under my name. She had it transferred before my surgery. Said it would simplify things at the hospital." Walter leaned back slowly, brows furrowed. "You mean the house she's living in?" "Yes." He exhaled, and something that sounded almost like a disbelieving laugh followed. "Well," he said, "that changes everything. Ever trusted someone so completely that you didn't see the knife until they handed you the handle? Tell me in the comments. It's time we say it out loud." Walter stood up and reached for a small metal lockbox from the bookshelf behind him. Inside was a tidy stack of official forms, some paper-clipped, others marked with colored tabs like tiny teeth. "You'll need to make copies of everything," he said. "Every single page. Wherever possible, get notarized statements. And if you can, list the exact dates Claire made those withdrawals." I was already reaching for my notepad before he'd finished. My fingers trembled slightly, but my mind was sharp, sharper than it had been in years. "Should I call her?" I asked. "Tell her what I'm doing?" Walter looked at me, unwavering. "No. Let the paperwork speak for you. It'll say it better than you ever could." That line echoed inside me, louder than any argument I'd rehearsed. Let the paperwork speak. Let it carry the weight of every scream I swallowed. Let it tell the story of the theft disguised as affection. Let it shine a flashlight on every invisible bruise she never thought I'd find words for. Because this wasn't vengeance. This was documentation. This was record. This was proof. That night, I stayed up scanning every file I had. I separated folders until long past midnight. My spine throbbed, and my eyes burned, but I kept going. I wasn't just archiving a life anymore. I was building a case. And even if no one ever apologized, even if I never stepped foot inside a courtroom, I'd know that somewhere, in ink and time-stamped entries, the truth had a place to live. Because for the first time in decades, I was writing the ending. Claire had no idea I still had the deed. She never asked. Never thought to. Why would she? She assumed her soft coup had succeeded, that her quiet grab for control had become permanent. She never imagined I'd be the one writing the next chapter. So when she pulled into the driveway 2 mornings later and saw a stranger in a crisp blazer standing in the front yard holding a clipboard, I imagine it felt like her perfectly choreographed world had just glitched. The stranger was Madeline, a real estate agent Walter had connected me with. Discreet. Smart. Zero appetite for drama. By the time Claire slammed her car door, I was miles away, sitting 3 towns over on a sunlit balcony at Golden Pines. A glass of iced tea sweating in my hand. A property reassessment form balanced on my lap. Walter had delivered it that morning. I didn't need to be there for the fallout. The documents had already arrived. Claire called me 3 times in a row. All went straight to voicemail. She tried a 4th time. I picked up. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" she snapped. "There's a realtor here doing some kind of walkthrough of my house." "Your house, whatever. You ordered an evaluation?" I let a beat of silence settle. Then calmly. "Correct." It rattled her. "You're not serious." "I'm very serious." I could hear the frantic pacing on her end. "You don't even live here anymore. Are you doing this to punish me? To humiliate me?" "No," I said softly. "I'm just reclaiming what was always mine." There was a long pause, then venom. "This is my home." "No," I corrected. "It's the home you've been squatting in. Managing with money that never belonged to you. I let you play caretaker. That title has now been revoked. You can't just throw us out." "I didn't throw anyone out, Claire. You told me to leave. You made that choice. I'm just following through." The silence that followed wasn't hollow. It was heavy. She didn't think I'd remember. She didn't think I still had the paperwork, the one she tricked me into signing after surgery, to help with hospital logistics. But I remembered one thing. One thing she never bothered to double-check. I never gave her full power of attorney. So, legally and otherwise, the deed was mine. And now, it was being reassessed. Prepared for listing. Protected. She found her voice again, colder now. "You're being cruel." I didn't rise to defend myself. Didn't backpedal. I spoke one sentence. Calm. Final. "You only miss me now that I said no." And then I hung up. Madeline texted half an hour later. "Evaluation complete." Claire attempted to interfere. I remained professional. "Property holds strong resale value. We'll follow up tomorrow." Later that evening, Walter called. "She tried me too," he said. Left a message full of fire and brimstone. "Let her rage," I replied. Because this time, I wasn't scared of her voice. I wasn't scared of her anger. I wasn't even angry myself. I had passed anger. What I felt now was more dangerous, more decisive. I was certain. Certain that love without boundaries becomes bondage. Certain that caretaking without consent becomes captivity. Certain that even if I had nothing left but my iced tea, my peace, and my name back in ink, I'd still be richer than I ever was in that house. That night, I went to bed early. And for the first time in years, I locked the door. Not out of fear, but because I finally had something worth keeping safe. Have you ever realized the most dangerous thing you gave someone was your silence? Tell me. Your story matters too. The front doors at Golden Pines are made of thick glass, elegant, substantial. You can see out, but no one comes in without your permission. That's why I didn't flinch when I saw Claire approaching. I was in the community library that morning, flipping through a research article Walter had printed for me, something about financial exploitation among elders. His yellow highlighter cut across words like coercion, misappropriation, pattern of isolation. My tea sat untouched beside me. Bitter. Cold. But the truth in those pages burned hotter. Then my room phone rang. "There's a Claire here to see you," the receptionist said gently. "Would you like us to let her in?" I didn't even have to think. "No," I said. "But tell her I'm watching." They didn't press further. They knew. Golden Pines had seen this dance before, children showing up, not with flowers, but with fear of legal consequences. Not because they cared, but because now they had something to lose. I stepped into the sunroom just off the lobby, hidden behind soft-tinted glass. From there, I could see everything without being seen. There she was. Tight jeans. Red blouse. Jaw clenched. Pacing small circles like a lioness trapped in an upscale lobby. Her frustration was already leaking into the air like perfume too strong to ignore. I saw her point toward the reception desk, her gestures sharp, her voice animated. I couldn't hear it, didn't need to. I knew Claire's brand of outrage like I knew the shape of my own hands. What she didn't know? She was on the outside now. And I wasn't behind a locked door. I was behind choice. That's a kind of power people like her never see coming. Not the power to scream. But the power to ignore. 10 minutes later, security arrived. Polite. Calm. But immovable. A woman in a navy blazer with a staff badge spoke to Claire in a firm, even tone. Claire's arms flailed now. Her voice rose, trying to reclaim the spotlight, the chaos. But it wasn't working. Because for once, the system wasn't bending around her. It was standing between us. She pointed in all directions, toward the exit, the reception counter, the koi pond brochure on the wall. Anywhere but at herself. Eventually, she turned on her heel and stormed out. The doors hissed closed behind her like punctuation. I returned to my seat, the article still open, my tea colder than before. But I wasn't. Later that day, Walter stopped by and I told him what happened. She came all this way just to be denied at the door, he said with a slow shake of his head. Guess she was expecting someone else. She was, I replied. She was expecting the version of me that thought silence meant peace. He nodded once, eyes steady. That version's long gone. We walked out to the garden together. The staff had left 2 iced lemonades on a tray, no explanation needed. They knew. They always knew. I settled onto the bench I'd come to love, the one wrapped in ivy, the one that caught just the right angle of koi pond reflection at sunset. The breeze danced through the leaves. It didn't carry the weight of guilt anymore. Claire had come seeking something, maybe leverage, maybe regret. She left with nothing. Because I had nothing left to hand over. No apologies. No explanations. Not even eye contact. And the strange, beautiful stillness that filled me wasn't about victory. It was about the sound of footsteps walking away. And me not following. I reached for Walter's hand, warm, steady, and gave it a small squeeze. I don't think I'm afraid of her anymore, I whispered. His lips curved just slightly. That, he said, means she's truly gone. 2 days later, Walter called just after breakfast. It's time, he said. You still ready to sell the house? There was no hesitation in my voice. Yes. He arrived within the hour, a slim file folder under his arm. Inside, the full title deed, my notarized ID confirmation, and a blank trust form ready to be filled out. We spread the documents on the sun porch table, sunbeams catching the gold of his wedding ring, the edge of my tea saucer, the seal of legal ownership on the papers. She's going to come unglued, I murmured, pen in hand. Walter smirked without amusement. Let her, he said. Coming unglued means her mask is slipping. Line after line, I signed. Print. Initial. Signature. If Cliff were still here, he would have teased me for the way my tongue peeked out when I concentrated, a lifelong habit. But this wasn't just focus. This was finality. That house, the one Claire flaunted, redecorated, filled with faux status. She never owned it. Sure, she chose the curtains. Bought the couch using my credit. Hung art prints I never liked. But the foundation? The soil beneath it? That was mine. Always had been. We filed the trust form discreetly, transferring the deed into the Eleanor Marshall Irrevocable Living Trust. Not out of fear. Out of certainty. This wasn't about keeping her out. It was about never letting anyone like her back in. Not even legally. By the next morning, the title was no longer just a piece of paper. It was a shield. Claire didn't know yet. But the law did. And this time, the law was on my side. And I wasn't finished yet. With the help of a financial exploitation advisor Walter connected me to, I filed a formal request to freeze all activity tied to my original checking and savings accounts. Every transaction over the past 6 months was flagged. "Do you have supporting records?" the advisor asked, a pen poised midair. "I have 12 pages, I said, handing her my journal. Every date, every unauthorized withdrawal, every small theft disguised as help. She flipped through it, the lines on her forehead deepening with each turn. "You weren't just being taken advantage of," she finally said. "You were being harvested." I didn't wince. Because I already knew. But now, the law knew too. I returned to Golden Pines feeling a strange lightness. Not joy, that still felt far off. But there was breath again. Like something inside my chest had finally exhaled. Back in my room, I reached for something I hadn't dared touch in nearly a year. An old envelope from Cliff, left behind before his passing. It had sat untouched at the bottom of my keepsake box. On the front, in his handwriting. "Only when you're tired of pretending you're okay." My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside, a short letter. "Eleanor. If they ever make you feel smaller than the woman I married, don't argue. Don't explain. Just leave. You don't owe anyone the right to dim your light. Use what's yours. And for God's sake, make damn sure they never take it again." Beneath the letter. A check. Uncashed. $10,000. I stared at it for a long time. Then, I laughed, a deep, aching laugh that cracked something open inside me. He knew. Even then. Cliff had known the world could twist. Even family could. Especially family. I called Walter. "You busy?" "For you?" "Never." "Then let's do it," I said. "Let's sell the house. Let's build something they can't break." He paused. "You ready for the fallout?" I looked around, at the sun on my windowsill, the koi pond rippling below, my bridge scarf draped on the arm of my favorite chair. "Yes," I said. "Because this time, I'm not reacting. I'm reclaiming." That check? I deposited it that afternoon. Not because I needed the funds. But because it was time to tell the world. I'm still building. Claire always believed she'd get the final word. She counted on it. Her voice louder. Her messages longer. Her guilt dipped in syrup and spit. She thought my silence was surrender. So when the letter arrived, thick with legal tone and embossed with trust firm insignia, I imagined she stood there, staring at it for a long time before opening it. And when she did, the sound that echoed was louder than a scream. A door locking, without a word. Inside that envelope. Formal notification from the Eleanor Marshall Living Trust Legal Counsel. Effective immediately, Claire Thompson is no longer authorized to access, manage, or intervene in any accounts, records, or property belonging to Eleanor Marshall. It was brief. Cold. Unapologetic. Not cruel. Just clear. That clarity is what broke her. She called me 7 times that day. I let every call go to voicemail. The 8th rang longer, then ended with a message. "Mom, this is insane. You're listening to him instead of your own daughter. Do you even know what you're doing? You're throwing away your family." Family. She used the word like it was a bulletproof vest. Like it could cover everything. The manipulation. The deception. The way she poured scalding coffee on my lap, then blamed me for spilling it. I forwarded the voicemail to Walter. Just in case. Then I did something quiet. Intentional. I sent her nothing. No reply. No apology. No defense. Because this time, the paper spoke louder than I ever could. And it didn't ask for forgiveness. It set a boundary. Walter called that night. She got the letter, didn't she? Oh, she got it, I said, sipping chamomile from my favorite mug, chipped, familiar. You can always tell when they realize the power's gone. He laughed softly. You didn't even flinch. Why would I? I said. I already buried the version of me who felt the need to explain herself. That night, I left the windows open. The air smelled like oncoming rain. And in my dreams, I wasn't fleeing. I was standing in the center of my old house, my house. Holding keys I never handed to anyone again. Have you ever held your ground so silently, it shook the very person who once silenced you? Drop a cloud with rain if you've ever let the paper do the talking for you. The next morning, a plain white envelope had been slipped beneath my door. No return address. Just my name in handwriting I knew too well. Claire. I didn't need to open it. Didn't hold it to the light. Didn't weigh it in my palm. I tore it clean in half and dropped it straight into the shredder at the front desk. No drama. No hesitation. Just closure, not the kind that asks for permission, but the kind that ends quietly on my terms. Because this time, I wasn't curious. This time, I didn't need to read an apology only to have it dissolve into, but I need. This time, I trusted silence more than her words. And silence, when chosen, is a kind of power most people never expect you to have. Later that day, Walter stopped by with a small folder. Just some updates. New language for the trust. A few additional secured accounts. Emergency contacts for law enforcement, the trust attorney, and a senior protection hotline. As I signed the final page, he looked up with something between admiration and relief. You know, he said, you've done what most people never manage to do. What's that? You broke the cycle. No screaming. No courtroom drama. Just a locked door, and a name cleared. I sat back in the chair. And for the first time since Cliff passed, I believed something I hadn't dared to whisper before. I was home. Not to a house. To myself. It happened on a Thursday. After lunch. Golden Pines was quiet, that lull between the meal and the late afternoon tea cart. Sunlight pooled across the tiled hallways, bathing everything in gold. I was outside, sitting on a garden bench with Margot, our fingers brushing against a shared quilt spread between us, the same faded one Cliff used to drape over me when I fell asleep during late-night Jeopardy reruns. We'd just finished our usual rant about how the new bridge group didn't know how to shuffle properly. Walter was due any minute. And that's when I saw them. Claire and Evan. Striding up the brick pathway like they were entitled to the air. Claire's steps were sharp, all elbows and storm. Evan trailed behind, hands in his hoodie, not making eye contact with anyone, not even himself. This time, they weren't there to accuse. They were there to ask. But asking is difficult when you've spent your life pretending you don't need anything. The front desk rang like clockwork. Ms. Marshall, Claire and Evan are here again. Would you like us to respond the same as before? Yes, I said softly. Exactly the same. And they did. From the sunroom window, I watched as Doris stepped from behind the desk like calm wrapped in khaki. Claire leaned forward, not barking this time, but pleading, quietly. Her gestures were restrained. Her energy? Frayed. There was no performance. No manipulation. Only fatigue, and the slow crumbling of entitlement. Evan didn't even try to speak. He looked at Doris, then over his shoulder. And then, he walked away. Again. But this time, Claire didn't scream. She just watched him go. Then, slowly, she turned toward the window. She couldn't see me, not directly. But something in her stilled. She mouthed something. Not Mom. Not why. It looked like, please. And I blinked. Not out of sympathy, but recognition. She finally understood what she'd lost. And for the first time in her life, she couldn't take it back. I stayed seated, wrapped in my quilt. Steady. And the doors whispered shut behind her one last time. You okay? Margot asked, pressing a tissue into my hand. Yes, I whispered. For real this time. Gerald stopped by later with flaky croissants and a ridiculous card about old ladies who drink too much tea and start revolutions before noon. We laughed hard, like wind through a tunnel that had once been blocked by grief. You've earned this quiet, he said, raising his mug. Every page. Every pond ripple. Every silence you didn't fill. I nodded. Then told him something even I didn't expect. I'm done journaling. His brows lifted. Why? That book saved you. It did, I said. But I don't need proof anymore. I survived it. I left it. And now, I'm living again. I turned Claire's last check into paper confetti and donated it to the crafts room. Her letters became papier-mâché flowers for the spring fair. And Cliff's final note? I framed it and hung it above my desk. New routines bloomed like hydrangeas in summer. Tuesday tea with Margot. Thursday book club, where no one finishes the books. Sunday morning strolls with Gerald, pretending we're racing squirrels. And when I go to sleep now, I don't check the locks twice. Not because I think someone might break in, but because the people I love aren't trying to rob me anymore. This chapter is mine. Not hers. Not theirs. Mine. And I won't apologize for that. If you've ever rebuilt a life someone else tried to erase. If you've ever stitched peace out of betrayal. If you've ever said no and meant it with your whole chest. Then you already know. Closure doesn't come from revenge. It comes from reclaiming the pen and writing the last page yourself. You don't owe them your story. But you do owe yourself the ending. If you've ever chosen yourself, fully, finally, drop a locked with key.